Today on the Unofficial Shopify podcast, we're going to unravel the mysteries of churn. Yes, we've got Daniel McCarthy, a professor who goes deep on these things, has published a research paper. He's been on the show before. Last time we talked about LTV. Dan, what did we talk about last time?
All things LTV.
Okay, that's what I thought, that it was
A little bit
LTV.
of that, but obviously it kind of brought all the various different pieces together, CAC and contribution margin, but retention is one of the big pieces. So we kind of sampled it. So just thought it would be a nice segue and deep dive into one of the pieces.
All right, so what's this? This is essentially a dramatic recreation of an academic paper structured as an interview. What you recently published this thing. What is it?
Well, it's all about this phenomenon that we find that you take a startup that is subscription-based, and what you will see is that its overall churn rate, just kind of the most commonly disclosed measure of a company's retention trends, the overall churn rate just tends to move down over time. And I think a lot of people, they'll point to that as evidence that the business is gaining traction, it's achieving product market fit, people really like it. But in fact, what we show is that it's not the case. It's just something that always tends to happen, even when the customers are getting less sticky over time. So really, you don't want to get faked out by that. And it has speaks to that broader point that churn is really something that does matter. It's a measure of how happy people are with the service. All else equal, if you're more satisfied with your Yoke of the month or your anime subscription, Crunchyroll, something like that, then you're going to stick with it for longer. You can renew for more periods, and that's going to mean more revenue and ultimately profit in the company's pocket. So it's something that matters, that you really want to make sure that you're kind of measuring it the right way.
Okay, so I'm not canceling my Netflix subscription because I'm so thrilled with them, right? If I'm canceling it, it's because I'm not happy with the value I'm getting, would be the most charitable way to think of it. But give us dumb it down for me. Just give me the layman's explanation. Define churn for us, since that's the topic of the day.
Mm-hmm. So at churn, the event is canceling the subscription. So if you have the Netflix subscription, you fully cancel. So you're no longer a member of that company. And the churn rate then is taking all of the people who had been subscribed in the previous period and saying, well, how many of them churned this period? It could be this quarter, it could be this month. And just let's look at the ratio of the two. So if I had 100 subscribers in my base last month and then 10 of them churned, then my churn rate is 10 over 100 or 10%. And so, intuitively it makes sense that you want to keep track of that, because if more people are churning, your churn rate's going to be higher, so that it makes a lot of intuitive sense. But that is what churn is, and that is what the churn rate is typically defined as.
All right, so stupid question. Churn is exclusive to subscription businesses. Non-subscription does not have a measurement for churn?
So churn, it's a great question. In a non-subscription setting, we know that people will churn in the sense that they will end their relationship with her. And if you take 100 people who buy, their first pair of shoes from Allbirds, some of them will like it and will continue to repeat buy it. Some of them will say, I'm never going to buy a pair of shoes from this company again. And that is effectively churn. Like they're ending the relationship. But the main distinction is that we don't have the ability to actually see the cancellation event. They're just silently attriting, is what they call it. That they just kind of silently exit. So churn does exist in a mouse subscription setting, but it's unobservable in that. And so I think for that reason, there really isn't a way for non-subscription companies to record and slow churn measure. And so you will often only see these churn type disclosures coming from subscription firms.
Okay. And we could throw a curveball in here. When I go to cancel, they'll often do to retain me as a customer, they'll say, hey, instead of canceling, especially if it's like a physical good that's getting mailed to me, like cat litter, multivitamins, whatever. They go, well, maybe you already have enough. You just don't need this month's shipment. Rather than cancel, can you skip? Sure, I'll skip this month. That throws a monkey wrench into it. How do we think of, well, how does a subscription model where you could skip affect churn measurement?
Yeah, basically, to me, what it introduces is more variability in the monetization of customers that are with a firm. So you may have a whole bunch of people who are with you, but some of them will never skip, and some of them will skip very frequently. And basically, I would say that they're both, all those people are still with the firm. They haven't churned yet, but now we need to keep track of this extra process, which is essentially it's the probability that someone's going to skip or not. And that can lead to meaningful differences across the customers, which can lead to, I confess, but I kind of went just spoke about last time. It can manifest in pretty big differences in customer evaluation. But from the firm's perspective, it makes a lot of sense. Oftentimes, the trade-off that a firm will make when allowing for skips is, hey, if I didn't allow for skips, there may have been some people who had all that cat litter, in the pantry, and the next month rolls around, they don't need any more, but they don't want to cancel, and so they just and so you monetize those subscribers better. If you allow for sticks to occur, you're going to basically allow people to downshift a lot more, and so the revenue per subscriber will probably decline, by doing that. But then hope is that you retain your base for longer. And so I think companies are making this explicit trade-off between modernization and retention when they do things like that.
So your paper is called the declining churn fallacy. Tell me what you did here. What was the research?
Yeah, so the research is really to kind of point out this phenomenon that a lot of companies will say that their churn is declining when it's actually not. And it kind of speaks to this difference between the churn rate, as I had defined it before, and keeping track of the stickiness of customers over time. That I would say, if a company is acquiring customers that stay for longer and longer and longer, all else equal, that company actually has declining churn. Like the retention patterns are getting better over time. And that is not being measured by the churn rate. That's kind of the main thing that we show in the paper. So 9 times out of 10, the churn rate can move down. But what we show is actually, if you were to kind of look at a large number of month-to-month subscription businesses, that over time, the customers tend to get a bit less sticky over time. That more people in that cohort that you acquire a year from now are going to churn out, after 6 months than the cohort that you just brought in right today.
Why is that? They're like an inherent unsolvable death spiral to a subscription business?
It's not. It's much more benign than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it sounds scary.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, at first. Now, there's a question of attitude. So, we do find that, first, what we call cohort-specific churn, just the stickiness of the customers you acquire, acquisition cohort, that stickiness does tend to decline, but it's more variable. You have some firms where, the customers get more sticky. You have other firms where, the customers get less sticky. And so it's not nearly as universal. And it's not nearly as strong. But I think what it's picking up on is this thing we kind of intuitively may expect, that the customers that you acquire at the very beginning of your corporate life, they're probably more the true believers. They're jumping in early. And the fact that they're jumping in early is probably telling you something that they like the model better. It jives with them more. And so they're much quicker to adopt. If it takes many more years to bring in a customer, that's telling you that they're probably, they are literally jumping on the bandwagon late. So, um, so it kind of makes intuitive sense that they just may not, all else being equal, be into you quite as much as the kind of early true believer.
Interesting. Because initially I was like, I have no idea how or why this would be. But what you're saying is I start early with a company, I have loyalty to it. That's like, oh, I was a true believer. I was there at the beginning. I've been around. I've seen it grow. I've seen it improve. Versus the company's later stage, there's less of that rapid growth. They're more established. Maybe they cost more. I've already heard about it a while. I sign up. I'm not that impressed. Right. Let's stick it.
Yes, you reach out to their competitor, more quickly. Yeah, there's just
And yeah, the market around it probably has matured as well.
yeah, that's
So
definitely.
earlier you said the company will report declining churn as a positive thing, and you're like, it's actually it's the other way around. Are they intentionally cooking the books or misunderstanding, or is it because they're looking at it overall, or they're looking at like a segment over time?
I think it is genuinely just misunderstanding. It's one of the most popular disclosures of subscription firms, and so naturally, if you see that disclosed churn rate has moved from 20% to 10%, you call that a win. Yeah, how much do you better? Now, if you're within the marketing part, we really should know better. So, yeah, so it actually goes back a bit to how we define lifetime value. The lifetime value is you take a cohort of customers, you look at how much you spent to bring them in the door, you look at how long that cohort stays with you after acquisition, and then you look at the amount of profit that you get while they're with you. And then, you kind of smash it all together, and it gives you TLV. You want to kind of look at retention in the same way. That you have your cohort, you just acquired them, they're all with you. You're going to probably lose 30, 50% of them in the first month. Oftentimes, it wouldn't be out of pattern to see that sort of thing for a meal delivery type business. And then after that, the customers that stay, they tend to be around for a while. And so oftentimes what you end up seeing is this retention curve that has this very sharp decline in month 1, month 2, month 3, and then it kind of goes flat. And that if you have 10% of your subscribers with you a year later, you probably have 10% of your subscribers 13 months later. So in general, that cohort specific churn rate declines. And that by the time you get to month 12, the churn rate of customers in month 13 from that cohort is going to be pretty small. It's going to be a lot smaller than that, 30, 50% that you'll often see in month 1.
So I'm going to look at, so overall churn is like lifetime of the entire subscription program. Or is it per like 12, just everybody in there over 12 months, and then the cohort specific is groups who signed up in like X period?
Yeah, the overall churn is taking, imagine we think about Netflix, it's taking every single subscriber that was subscribed last month. They could have joined a year ago, they could have joined 10 years ago. And it's saying, let's just take them all together. Let's see how many people churned this month, and let's just compare the two.
Okay.
That would give you the churn rate. And that kind of gives you a sniff of what the issue is. So if you had some startup, most of the customers that were subscribed last month were probably young customers by construction. If the business just launched a year ago, then they literally can't have any customer that's been around for more than a year. And if they're growing really strongly, most of them probably came in a month or two ago. And so, a lot of these customers, these subscribers, who were just testing the waters for the very first time recently. And so as a result, we kind of expect that the churn rate is going to be higher because they get a lot of employers and they don't have a lot of diehard loyals in that base. Whereas Netflix, actually, I don't know what the number is right now, but I would just have to imagine that most of their current subscriber base has been with them for at least a year, or at least a couple of years. And so, those people, they're locked in and they're not going to leave, or it's going to be much less likely that they're going to leave. And so you just will kind of intuitively expect that the churn rate is going to be much lower for Netflix, all else equal, just because the base is lower, But it doesn't mean that, if you compared, a customer that they acquired today to a customer they acquired a year ago, that those customers are somehow better. It just means that the base is matured. They have a lot of old, highly tenured customers in it. And so just mathematically speaking, that's going to drive down the stated disclosed churn rate.
In your paper, you've got the Netflix example is good because I think we can all relate to the customer experience with Netflix. But in your paper, you've got the Hubble as an example, as a case study. Can you tell me about that as it applies to this?
Yeah, Hubble, they're a contacts company. They're kind of your right to consumer selling contacts, and they sell on a month-to-month subscription. So you can kind of sign up, you just get your product each month, and they're a pretty startling example of this trend. That if you look at their month one churn, which is to say, everyone who acquired today, what proportion of them are still with you next month? And just look at that month one churn rate over time. What you'll find is that it's kind of steadily moved up. It's basically moved from 40% to 50% over this first 12 months of the company's life. But if you then look to the overall churn rate, it paints a much more sanguine picture. The overall churn rate has declined from about 40% down to around 20%, and then stayed relatively stable. And so, again, you kind of have this scale up to roll thought on that you look at the overall churn rate, you see it going from 40% to 20%, you say, mission accomplished. We're doing a lot better than we were. But in fact, that month one churn would have you being almost being a little concerned, that it does seem like the customers are getting less and less sticky over time.
Okay. We've heard a lot about how we're doing things wrong. I want the right way. How should we be using churn as a KPI to gauge business health?
Look at the cohorts. I'm a big believer in cohorts. So you acquire customers, it starts the clock. And you want to think about the performance of your customers as a function of their tenure with the firm. So the way I would conceptualize a subscription business is every month you're acquiring some people, and you then want to track measures more like month one churn, month three churn, month six churn, month 12 churn. And that's saying, just kind of apples to apples. Like the customers that I acquired at a certain point in time and roll forward the clock, 1, 3, 6, 12 months. I want to know what percent that were still with me. So that is what they call a cohort-specific measure, because it's not aggregating across everyone in the base. It's saying, let's look at people from each specific acquisition cohorts and just see, how long they've stayed after a certain amount of time has passed. So you really want to look at those cohort-specific measures and track those over time. You can roll them up into, I think, kind of derived predictive measures that could be trackable in a singular way. So again, the nice thing about the overall churn rate is it's a single measure. And we just now look at one thing, different periods of time, and say, meandering the girl or not. As soon as you start moving to cohort-specific measures, there's a question of which cohort-specific measure to focus on. Because in theory, every single point on the retention curve could be disclosed. There's just a lot of them. So the other thing that can be important to track would be just the expected lifetime of a customer. Yes, if you took a cohort of customers acquired 2 years ago, 1 year ago today, what is the expected lifetime of that customer? How long on average will they stay with you before they churn? And that is a pretty good standalone measure where you don't need to track a zillion different things. You can just kind of track that one thing. And pound for pound, it's going to be pretty diagnostic and relevant, and won't kind of fake you out as long as you're kind of doing the measurements correctly.
All right, walk me through either step by step how I'm supposed to do this, or like give me the actionable strategy here.
So for the churn measures, for the enlightened type cohort specific churn measures, just look to the transaction log. So the very first time someone buys, that is when they're live. I guess in this case, the very first time that someone says. And the month one churn, it's basically, take all those people who subscribe at a certain point in time, the number of churners relative to the number of people who subscribed 1 month after acquisition. So again, you can kind of do that. You just with some spreadsheet math, and it's actually something that I do in my CLE class. I teach it all semester course just on customer lifetime valuation. This is one of the things that I advocate do. So it's relatively simple math, but very, very powerful. But yeah, all you would need to do these calculations is pull up your transaction log and then just look at some ratios. Now, it gets a little trickier when you move to in kind of two directions. One is if you don't have a month-to-month subscription business, you actually need a business where people could only have the opportunity to churn after a year. Or if it's like Dollar Shave Club where you can kind of pick, like you prepaid for a certain number of months, then you want to account for that in the churn measures. Like kind of holding aside those complications. The other thing that gets a little more complicated is to compute the expected lifetime. So if you have a really, really old cohort, and if you acquired them, 10 years ago, it's probably the case that every single customer from that cohort is churned. The expected lifetime then is just take the churn time of every single one of those subscribers from that cohort and just average the churn time. So if you had a cohort of 2 people and one of them stayed with you for 1 year, one of them stayed with you for 3 years, then the average lifetime of a customer from that cohort was 2 years. If that makes sense. And the tricky part is, if you acquired a cohort 3 months ago, you will have some portion of the cohort that churned after that point, but you probably have a whole bunch of people who are with you right now. And so you kind of need to predict when it is that each of those customers is going to churn in the future. And that requires growth engine model.
I was going to say, how do you predicting customer departure? That's a cool trick. How do you do that?
The easiest way, honestly, is to look to the retention curve. And again, kind of what we'll find is that the retention curve has this pattern where it kind of sharply declines and then starts to go flat. And there's a very, very simple model that is implementable in Excel where you kind of take that historical churn pattern and it can basically allow you to get a very good estimate of what the future churn pattern is going to be. So, yes, I'd be happy in the show notes if you're interested to share an Excel file. And
yeah, please do.
Yeah.
So you already have a spreadsheet prepared with these equations, and you can simulate this churn model.
I even have a YouTube video that takes you through the spreadsheet to say, put in your data here, click this, press that, and do your estimate. So,
all right, that's useful. Yeah, for sure. I need that in the show notes.
So just remind you, I'll make sure you get that over to you. And yeah, I think the beauty is, it really is very simple. So it'd be hard to do the deep dive here on today's show. I think it just would be it'd be a little bit much, but you can kind of sit down with that YouTube video and the spreadsheet PowerPoint deck for about an hour or two. Yeah, I think that you get it. So yes, that kind of gives you a tool to be able to project out retention for your business, assuming that you're a subscription business.
And okay, I think all of this kind of assumes you're an established business because that way you have data to work with. If I'm just a new business, is there anything I could do? Is this useful at all to me? Or is it like just, hey, wait until you've got the data, then you could figure it out?
Yeah, it's a great question. If you're a month-to-month subscription business, even if you don't have that many months of operating history, you can still use this to get, you know, retention trends for the customers that you acquired so far. So, and you don't actually need that many months to get a pretty good estimate of what those cohorts will do. It's probably, 4 or 5 months. So not much. No, it's a lot less data than you're going to have for a much more mature business like Netflix. So, it's, you would kind of expect a lot more uncertainty in your projections. And if you're a young firm, I'd say, the other thing that can happen is it's more likely that you're going to dramatically change up the model somehow. You change up your pricing, change up the products. As you get more mature, the likelihood that you make some groundbreaking change to your business model goes down. So inherently you'd expect that this will become more predictable. But yeah, I'd say the main type of business where it's going to be harder to use that spreadsheet, it's going to be impossible to use, especially if you don't have any subscribers. So, yeah, so if you're kind of at that stage, then the best thing you can do is look to peer companies. So pull up data either from companies like Netflix, but earlier on in their history, and see what is good, what is bad, what is normal. And, if you're putting together investment materials, you can run different scenarios to say, hey, I know that you don't have any subscriber data for me. I can't share that with you yet, but this is what tends to be normal, and I can at least give investors some sense of, if they were to deliver a relatively normal, quote unquote, amount of performance, we can kind of expect this from them from a retention perspective. Now, I would say this is a final point on that. Even if you have a pretty decent amount of subscriber data, I think it can still be very helpful to run those same sort of competitive analyses. Because it could be that you've been doing something wrong for a while, So if your retention is way lower than every single one of your major competitors, that might be telling me something that, you're leaving money on the table somehow. And so, so I think that sort of analysis, it can have value whether you're young or you're old, but when you're old, at least you can also look at your own subscriber data. Whereas if you're young, the competitor data may be all you've got.
And this whole thing is entirely quantitative. Is there any value or any method to add some qualitative data in here? Can we get feedback from customers? Hey, why'd you cancel?
That can be very helpful information to know. I am a numbers geek, so my bias is always towards numbers. But what I would say is, I think that qualitative information can be helpful, and in fact can be fed out into the quantitative model. So, so if you had information on the reason that the customers churn, for example, what you may find is there are some customers where it really wasn't you, that you'll kind of want to distinguish, did the customer churn because of something that I did, or was it because of some external circumstance that the customer was exposed to? I'd say the most standard example of this is in the telecommunications space, but they actually have pretty decent data about the causes of churn, and they can kind of broadly be lumped into voluntary versus involuntary. And involuntary churn would be things like they moved out of the area and they changed states, or they moved to a different country. And sure, that kind of stinks. That Verizon won't get that revenue anymore, but Verizon wouldn't say I did something wrong. They didn't really do anything wrong. The person who said it moved. Whereas if it was something like I had bad service, then that would be a very different story altogether. So, so what you can do is you can kind of add that into your analysis and then be able to say, well, I may also have data about, customer service and customer service touch points. And to the extent that I can improve my customer service, I can then relate that to the probability that customers turn because of customer service related issues. Now, those customers may still end up churning for other reasons, like moving out of state. But at least then you can get a much more refined view as to like what's the money that could be in it for me if I were to dump more money into customer service and get people to churn less often because of being unhappy with customer service.
And you've got your finger on the pulse here, right? You're seeing the similar data across a variety of industries. Are there trends we're seeing across all subscriptions? Are there industry specific patterns? Anything unique or interesting stand out to you trend wise?
Yeah, one of the big ones is B2B versus B2C. So B2C is business to consumer, so that'd be things like the Hubble example we talked about, where they're selling contacts direct to consumers. It could be Blue Apron, HelloFresh. I guess Blue Apron would be not a good example to mention anymore because they require. But yeah, any meal delivery business that operates on subscription, they tend to observe a pattern that I just described of sharp drop off, then kind of goes flat. But one of the other kind of key distinguishing features of a B2C business is that typically the amount of money that you get from them while they're alive tends to be pretty stable. You can't just think of your gym membership or your cell phone subscription or Netflix. You know, it's that same monthly rate. And yeah, and it's possible that people can kind of move up to that higher service tier, from SD, HD, or what have you. But typically, on average, it stays relatively flat. And so if the retention kind of sharply drops and then goes flat, then the revenue is going to sharply drop and go flat. And so you kind of would just have to respect that. And B2B it's really different. For one, they're acquiring much fewer customers because their customers are businesses. And there's just much fewer businesses in the world than there are humans. So and then oftentimes, they will have a lot more monetization while customers are alive. So let me track with this thing called logo churn. And logo churn is churn as we've been talking about thus far. Yeah, they acquire 100 businesses and 10 of them churn. Their logo churn is 10%. But the other thing that they'll often track is what they call the revenue churn. And revenue churn is kind of a bastardized metric, in my opinion. It's because it's kind of belonging together multiple different behavioral processes into one thing. But what it represents is basically the same thing, but for revenue. So my target cohort in the first month, I got $100 of revenue from them. If I now am getting $110 of revenue from them, then my net dollar retention is 110% because I'm making 10% more than what I started with. And so revenue churn would be negative in that case. It would be negative 10%. Now, that's going to be a function. It's going to be driven by both logo churn. Like if you have customers churning out more frequently, you got less money coming in the door, right? Because they're not going to be bringing any revenue to you. But the other thing that kind of drives it is the amount of revenue that you get while customers are alive. And in B2B settings, what you'll often find is the amount of revenue that a company will get from its subscribers tends to dramatically increase over time. And the reason is there's kind of a handful of different reasons, but I don't know how many people in the audience have used Slack before, but I think they're a great example. There's a whole bunch of people who are startups that start on that lowest tier paid plan. And if you're a startup, you might have 10, 20 employees. But what happens is as that company grows, it raises the next couple rounds of funding, it's going to have more employees. And so maybe it's going to have 60 employees instead of, 20 employees. And because Slack charges per seat, then all else being equal, that means triple the revenue. The other thing that happens is as you grow more and more established, you start having to pay for all this extra stuff like enterprise grade service and data security, the list goes on. So typically companies like Slack will have kind of their basic plan, but then we'll also have the enterprise plan. And the enterprise plan will not only, it's going to be more expensive per seat, so in addition to having the 60 employees, you're getting more revenue per employee from that company than you had gotten originally. So yes, again, Slack is going to have customers churning out. Either they churn out because they move the teams, then they churn out because, a lot of startups still us. But from the companies that do end up succeeding, they get so much more revenue from the succeeders that their revenue churn becomes pretty steeply negative. And that was a mouthful, but hopefully it kind of gives us a sense of the difference between those two settings.
So I've noticed it in marketing discussions over time. I've been doing this long enough to, over time, KPIs change. Like, this is the right KPI, or like, don't use that one, use this one. Certainly we've seen go from ROAS to CAC to, like, there's just different way to MERS, different ways to get similar KPIs to measure similar objectives. In churn analysis, do you think that KPI will change? In the future, where do you see this type of business analytics going?
I do see either fewer companies disclosing the churn rate, or at least if they disclose it, they're all in your nose appropriately. So Netflix, for example, like you mentioned, they've done a great job of poo-pooing the measure in public. I've done this literally. They'll very often say, look, the composition of our base is maturing. That's going to push our churn rate down. And so they made it very clear that they kind of know what's going on here. So yeah, I think at the very least, we're going to see that. I think any one metric can be gained. And so I like the appeal, the simplicity of having a single metric, that kind of summarizes success. But I think it's very dangerous and can lead to some of the cycling that you're alluding to. Because, imagine for SaaS firms, probably the most popular disclosure besides paying customers is net dollar retention rate, which I just mentioned. And there's just all sorts of ways you can gain that if you really wanted to. You can have everyone come in, but when they come in, they're staying $1. And then you just immediately ratchet them out to month 2 to some higher number. And it sets this really low base, for the net dollar retention rate to expand over time. It basically encourages lots of companies to move towards the land and expand business models relative to trying to monetize their customers earlier on. So, so I think, having a holistic approach is going to be important. And these different cohort-specific churn measures are important. I think the net dollar retention rate can be helpful. But, you also need to keep track of CAC. And if you spend $1 zillion to bring customers in, you can have the greatest net dollar retention rate in the world, and you're still going to be a very poor business, So, and then the other thing is the contribution margin. You can bring all this revenue. You can keep all your customers, but MoviePass, right? The whole issue with MoviePass was it used to be earning money. It sold customers a product for a certain price, and every time those customers did even a little bit of activity, they lost money. And so,
until they went out until the whole thing fell apart, it worked out pretty well for the customers.
Yeah, they went from it was something like 10,000 subscribers to 1 million subscribers in a really short amount of time. So you think about it, they were hitting their ball out of the park on like every single dimension. Customer acquisition, their CAC is probably nothing. The retention was probably great. The monetization was fine, but their contribution
margin was negative.
Was negative. Yeah, so that unmeasured just screwed them.
It's funny. We're essentially talking about like trends in favorability as it relates to business KPIs. I mean, like pretty esoteric stuff, but financially important. And I think a good example of that I failed to mention was contribution margin. Like suddenly we're seeing education around contribution margin and brands adopting contribution margin as this North Star for advertising campaigns for exactly the reasons you laid out. And so I think that's the reason to pay attention to these things, is when they give you insight into your business, that means you have confidence. And everybody tells me, I want to make data-driven decisions. Yeah, okay. In this case, when you have that quantifiable info and know what it means and know what to do with it, there you go. Now those are your data-driven decisions can now be made.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
Dan,
I mean,
go ahead.
yeah, see, it does, but the first thing, it comes with the expense of complexity. And so suddenly now you're managing into 10 measures and not 2 or whatever it might be, but I would argue that you acted. So, otherwise, I think you could have these blind spots where you think that you're doing well, when in fact you're either not doing well or you could be doing better. So, so yeah, another measure like that is the gross profit or contribution profit payback period. How many months does it take to get your customer acquisition dollars back? And hey, that's got the CAC in there. It's got the contribution profit in there. That probably would not have looked good for MoviePass. So that would have, shown some red warning signs. But even that could be gained if that was the only measure that you were focusing on. You just kind of start skipping big time on CAC, and maybe you should be spending a little more on CAC. If the customers you bring it in are really good. So, yeah. So sorry, rant over.
No, I appreciate it. Okay, give me the takeaway. What should people? They end this episode. What should they go do? Give me one actionable step.
Look to your transaction log. I probably actually would have given this similar advice at the end at the last episode to get together. But there's a wealth of data in the transaction log, and one of the key drivers that you want to be very mindful of is how valuable are your customers, and the key driver of that is how long are your customers staying with you. So you want to track that. Don't look to trends in overall churn rates as being indicative of much of anything. What you want to look at is you want to look at your retention curves, which are equivalent to looking at your cohort-specific churn measures, and track those across all of your cohorts. And that's going to give you a much better sense of how you're doing along the retention dimension. So you look to those. Obviously, if you're watching this episode and you have the show notes available to you, you can start running some of these models to be able to project out what future retention's going to be. Yes, so you can also look at measures like expected lifetime over time. So look to those. I say the other major takeaway from the end of this episode is this will give you a clean read into retention, and that's really important. But you want to then insert that into the broader context. You're again looking at that alongside CAC, contribution margin, and revenue per user. And if you kind of keep track of all those things, then you have a much more holistic sense of how you're doing from a customer value perspective.
I love it. And you've got tutorials and examples that we're going to include in the show notes, and an Excel spreadsheet. Ooh, I love getting other people's spreadsheets. I've discovered probably in the last 4 years, and I've been doing this a little over 10 years. In the last 4 years is where I'm like, being a spreadsheet jockey, that is the value. That is where you can really make a difference and do some impactful things. So exciting to get a fancy Excel spreadsheet from you. I'm in no way kidding about that. Where can we go to learn more about you? Like you're a professor, but you've got other things going on as well.
Yeah, so we do kind of enterprise grade customer value modeling, both in subscription and non-subscription settings for my company's data. So it's datacld.com is our website. So yeah, if you want to have, if you want to kind of bring in the pros, we'd love to speak with you. I think it can also be valued having a third-party perspective, because we have no conflict of interest. We just want to get to the truth. And so, we'll just kind of tell you what we see. The other company I would mention is Earnest Analytics. And they offer the competitive benchmarking type data that can be used to fuel that type of analysis when you're looking not only at your own company, but some of your peers. So we've got a benchmarking product that we're releasing with them. So I think that they're kind of another potential resource. On LinkedIn and Twitter, I think that's actually how we at first connected, was on, it might have been on Twitter.
I think Andy Bedell. No, I thought Andy Bedell introduced us.
Might have. Yeah, it's been a while. But I think it was over LTD.
Yes.
Yeah, but yeah. If I how to find that, it's on constantly talking about this sort of stuff on social media. So please do connect. I mean, yeah, happy to share my LinkedIn and my Twitter handle with you and showing us too.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'll put all that stuff in there. Okay, Dan, thank you so much. I gotta go be a spreadsheet jockey now.
Well, you're here, so that's where it's at.